Hey there, ready to dive into a topic that's both fascinating and a little unnerving.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about women and artificial intelligence,
Okay.
a relationship that's way more complex than you might think.
Right.
We've got reports and studies from UNESCO and some other experts,
Hmm.
and we're here to help you unpack the big stuff,
Cool.
the opportunities,
Okay.
the risks,
Yeah.
and what needs to happen to make sure AI is a force for good for everyone,
Right.
not just a select few.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that the gender gap in AI goes way beyond just representation.
Okay.
It actually has a huge impact on how effective AI is
Okay.
and how it affects our lives.
Yeah, it's not just about fairness,
Mm-hmm.
though that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah.
It's about whether AI actually works the way it's supposed to.
Right.
And sometimes just one statistic can really make that crystal clear.
Okay.
Did you know that globally women hold just 12% of AI research positions?
That's right. 12%, that's according to UNESCO.
12%.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder what we're missing out on, right?
And absolutely.
Think of all the talent and perspectives that aren't being included.
Yeah.
And when you leave diverse voices out of the design process,
Mm-hmm.
you end up with AI that can be less accurate,
Okay.
less effective,
Yeah.
and even potentially really harmful.
It's like building a house with only half the tools in your toolbox.
Okay.
You might be able to cobble something together,
Right.
but it's not going to be as strong or as functional as it could be.
Exactly. Like think about those voice recognition systems
Okay.
that have a hard time understanding female voices.
Uh-huh.
That happens because the data sets they're trained on are mostly male voices.
Right.
Have you ever experienced that yourself?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, and it highlights how these biases can creep into everyday technology.
Right.
And it goes beyond voice recognition, too.
Ah.
AI is being used in healthcare finance, hiring, you name it.
Yeah.
And if those systems are built with biased data,
Right.
the results can be really problematic.
Okay, so we know there's a problem.
Yeah.
But what's being done about it?
Right.
What are some of the steps being taken to close this gender gap
Okay.
and create a more equitable AI landscape?
Well, one of the most important things is making sure everyone has equal access
Okay.
to the tools and knowledge they need to participate in the AI revolution.
Right?
We're talking about things like digital literacy programs,
Uh-huh.
mentorship opportunities,
Yeah.
and funding for female-led AI startups.
That makes sense. But even when women do get their foot in the door,
Yeah.
there are still so many barriers they face.
Absolutely. Think about it. A staggering 50% of women end up leaving STEM fields within 12 years.
Wow.
That tells you something right there.
It's heartbreaking, really, what's
Yeah.
driving that kind of exodus.
There are a lot of factors at play, but a big one is the lack of support and mentorship.
Okay.
Women in these fields often face subtle and sometimes not so subtle biases.
Right.
They struggle to find role models, and they might not have access to the same networks and opportunities as their male counterparts.
It's almost like they hit an invisible ceiling, even when they're incredibly talented and driven.
This exactly right. And then there's the problem of bias creeping into AI-powered hiring tools.
Right.
Remember that example of Amazon's recruiting tool?
Oh, yeah. The one that was basically penalizing resumes that mentioned women's colleges.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of how these biases can get baked into AI systems,
Yeah.
which just perpetuates the cycle of inequality.
Right.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So it seems like there's this whole web of systemic issues that need to be addressed. But I don't want to get bogged down in negativity.
Okay.
What are some of the solutions that are already out there?
Right.
What's giving you hope?
Well, one really promising area is the push for ethics by design in AI development.
Right.
This means building fairness, transparency, and accountability into every step of the process, from collecting data to deploying the final product.
So instead of just trying to fix things after the fact,
Yeah,
we're trying to prevent these problems from happening in the first place.
exactly.
I like that approach.
And there are some great organizations leading the charge on this.
Okay.
UNESCO, for example, has developed these comprehensive guidelines on AI ethics.
Okay, what do those guidelines say? Give us the highlights.
Well, they stress the need for diverse teams to be involved in AI design.
Okay.
They call for using fair and representative data
Uh-huh.
and for integrating ethical values into the development process from the get-go.
It sounds like it's all about changing the very culture of AI development from the ground up.
You got it. And it's not just about avoiding harmful outcomes.
Okay.
It's also about actively using AI to promote positive social change.
Yeah.
That's where the idea of feminist and gender transformative approaches comes in.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. What's the difference between that and ethics by design?
Think of it this way. Ethics by design is like putting guardrails on a powerful tool to prevent it from causing harm.
Right.
But feminist and gender transformative approaches go a step further.
Okay.
They're about using that tool intentionally to dismantle gender inequality
Yeah.
and empower women and girls.
So it's not just about fixing the negative impacts. It's about actively using AI to create a more just world.
Exactly. It's about challenging gender norms, creating opportunities, and giving women the tools they need to thrive in this tech-driven world.
I love, are there any real-world examples of this in action?
Yeah.
Like projects or initiatives that are already making a difference?
There are tons. One really inspiring example is the Incubating Feminist AI project in Canada.
Okay.
They've been giving grants to people all over the world who are developing AI technologies that specifically promote gender equality.
That's amazing. So they're actually putting their money where their mouth is and funding projects that align with these values.
Exactly. And the results have been incredible.
Yeah.
They've supported the creation of AI tools that address issues like gender-based violence.
Access to healthcare and economic empowerment for women.
It's great to hear about these positive developments.
Yeah.
So we've got these ethical guidelines and we've got funding for feminist AI projects. What else is being done to ensure that the future of AI is more equitable?
Another key piece of the puzzle is developing what are called AI impact assessments.
Okay, break that down for me. What's an AI impact assessment?
Basically, before an AI system is launched, they do this assessment to figure out what the potential risks and benefits might be, kind of like a risk assessment, but specifically focused on things like fairness and equality.
So it's a way of catching potential problems before they become real-world issues.
Exactly. And there are some countries that are already doing this really well.
Okay.
For example, Spain has a whole framework for assessing the impact of algorithms on women in the workplace.
Okay, so they're actually giving organizations the tools and resources they need to do these assessments.
Yeah.
That's encouraging. The key now is to make these assessments standard practice in AI development across the board.
I think we're starting to get a clearer picture of the challenges and the potential solutions here. But let's step back for a second and talk about the big picture.
Okay.
What are the real dangers of AI if we don't address these gender biases?
Right.
What are we risking?
That's a crucial question, and the risks are honestly pretty serious.
Okay.
We're talking about real-world consequences that can impact every aspect of women's lives.
Right.
One major area of concern is discrimination.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to things like access to services and surveillance technologies.
Okay, give me an example. What does that look like in practice?
Well, we've already talked about how facial recognition systems can be less accurate for women of color, right? This can lead to all sorts of problems. Misidentification, false arrests, even being denied access to important services.
It's almost like a new form of profiling, except it's driven by algorithms.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it goes even further than surveillance.
Got it.
AI is being used in digital ID systems all over the world.
Right.
And if those systems are built on biased data, they can end up perpetuating existing inequalities.
So we're not just talking about surveillance. We're talking about access to basic human rights,
Right.
healthcare, education, even financial services.
Exactly. And then there's the impact on the workforce.
Right. We touched on those bias hiring algorithms earlier, but how else is AI affecting women's jobs and livelihoods?
Well, one big issue is automation.
Okay.
AI-powered automation is changing the job market rapidly. And a lot of the jobs that are being automated are jobs that are traditionally held by women.
So it's a double whammy. Women are underrepresented in the development of AI.
Yeah.
And then they're disproportionately affected by its deployment.
That's the unfortunate reality we're facing. And if we don't start addressing these issues, the situation is only going to get worse.
Okay, so we need to get serious about the ethical implications of AI.
Right.
But before we jump into solutions, I want to talk about one more risk that I find particularly disturbing.
Okay.
And that's the potential for AI to actually reinforce harmful gender stereotypes. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a really important point, and it's something we need to be very mindful of.
Yeah.
Think about the language and imagery that's being generated by AI systems these days.
Right.
It can often reflect and amplify existing biases.
Like we're training AI to be sexist.
In a way, yes, if the data we feed these systems is biased, the output is going to be biased as well.
And that bias can have a ripple effect throughout society.
Absolutely. There was this study by Bloomberg that found that AI image generators were actually worse than reality.
What?
When it came to depicting women in positions of power.
Wait, what do you mean?
When they asked these AI systems to generate images of judges, only 3% of the images were women.
Oh, wow.
But in reality, women make up 34% of judges in the U.S.
So the AI is actually amplifying the underrepresentation of women.
Exactly, and that's the danger.
Right.
AI can become a powerful tool for perpetuating the very biases we're trying to overcome.
This is all pretty intense. But I know there are people and organizations out there fighting back and working towards solutions.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what a more equitable AI future could look like.
Absolutely. There's a lot we can do, but it's important to remember that technology alone isn't the answer.
Okay.
We need to address the underlying social and cultural factors that contribute to gender inequality as well.
Right. It's not just about tweaking algorithms. It's about changing attitudes and systems.
Exactly. We need a multi-pronged approach that involves policy changes, ethical guidelines, education, and empowerment.
Let's start with policy. What kind of policies do we need to see put in place?
Well, UNESCO recommends that every country should have a national AI strategy.
Okay.
That includes a strong plan for addressing gender equality.
Okay, so governments need to step up and make this a priority.
And they need to back those plans up with real funding and resources.
Right. It's not just about words. It's about putting those words into action.
Absolutely. We also need to see a shift in how we approach AI ethics.
Okay.
It's not enough to just try to prevent harm. We need to actively promote fairness, transparency, and accountability.
You're talking about that ethics by design approach again, right?
Yes, but it needs to be more than just a concept.
Right.
We need to see concrete steps taken to implement these principles throughout the AI lifecycle.
Give me some examples. What would that look like in practice?
Well, we need to make sure that diverse teams are involved in every stage of AI development, from data collection to deployment.
Okay.
We need to be using data sets that are fair and representative of the population as a whole.
Right.
And we need clear guidelines for mitigating bias and promoting inclusivity in AI systems.
So it's about creating a whole new culture of ethical AI development.
Exactly. And that culture needs to be supported by robust AI impact assessments like the ones we talked about earlier.
Right. Those assessments need to be thorough, regular, and transparent so that we can hold developers accountable.
Absolutely. Transparency is key to building trust in AI.
Okay, so we've got policy, ethics, and assessments. What about education and empowerment?
Yeah.
What role do they play in creating a more equitable AI future?
Education is absolutely crucial for closing the gender gap in AI.
Yeah.
We need to empower women and girls with the knowledge and skills they need to participate in this technological revolution.
So we need to encourage more women to pursue STEM education and careers.
Yes, and we need to make sure those educational opportunities are accessible and welcoming to women from all backgrounds.
Okay.
We also need to provide AI literacy programs that are specifically designed to meet the needs and interests of women.
So we're talking about breaking down those barriers to entry we discussed earlier and creating a more inclusive learning environment.
Exactly. And empowerment is equally important. We need to support female entrepreneurs in the AI field.
Right.
Create mentorship programs and networks for women in AI.
Okay. And challenge those gender stereotypes that hold women back.
So it's about creating a supportive ecosystem where women can thrive in the AI field.
Precisely. We need a world where women aren't just passive consumers of AI.
Right.
But active creators, leaders, and innovators.
That's a powerful vision, but it's going to take a lot of work to make it a reality.
It will, but it's a challenge worth taking on. The future of AI depends on it.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. It's clear that the relationship between women and AI is complex and multifaceted, but I'm also feeling hopeful. What about you?
Me too. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the challenges, but it's important to remember that progress is being made.
And that progress is being driven by passionate people who are dedicated to creating a more equitable AI future.
Exactly. This is a collective effort. We all have a role to play.
What do you think is the most important takeaway for our listener today?
That's a great question. I would say it's this. Stay informed, be critical, and get involved.
Okay, break that down for us.
Stay informed about the potential risks and benefits of AI.
Do your research, read articles, listen to podcasts like this one.
Right. Get curious and stay up to date on what's happening in the world of AI.
Exactly. Be critical of the AI systems you interact with every day.
Right.
Ask questions, challenge assumptions, and don't just blindly accept the output.
Think for yourself and don't be afraid to push back if something doesn't seem right.
Right. And finally, get involved in the conversation about AI ethics and governance.
Okay.
Support organizations that are working on these issues. Contact your elected officials. Make your voice heard.
Use your power as a citizen to demand better from the people who are shaping the future of AI.
It's only by working together that we can create a future where AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
I love that. So what does all of this mean for you, our listener?
It means that you have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
You can demand ethical and inclusive AI.
You can support organizations that are working on these issues.
And you can think about how you can contribute to creating a more equitable AI future.
We're all in this together, and our collective actions will determine what kind of world we create.
That's a powerful message to end on. But before we go, I want to leave our listener with a final thought.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the negative impacts of AI. But what are the potential benefits for women and girls if we get this right?
That's a great question.
Could AI actually be a powerful tool for advancing gender equality? I think that's something worth exploring further. What are your thoughts?
I agree the possibilities are endless if we approach AI development with intention and a commitment to justice.
That's a perfect place to pause. For now, we'll be back in just a moment to delve even deeper into this fascinating topic.
You know, it's interesting to think about AI as this tool that can be used for good or for bad.
Okay.
Like a hammer, you can build a house with it, or you can cause some serious damage.
That's a great analogy, and I think it highlights why it's so important to be having these conversations about ethics and responsibility when it comes to AI.
Absolutely. And one area where those ethical considerations become especially urgent is when we're talking about online and offline gender-based violence and harassment.
That's a topic that doesn't always get the attention it deserves.
Right.
Why is it so important to connect this issue to the conversation about AI?
Well, because AI is increasingly being used in ways that can either exacerbate existing harms or even create entirely new forms of abuse.
Okay.
It's a really troubling trend, and it's something we need to be talking about more openly.
Okay, let's break it down. What are some of the ways that AI is being used in this context?
One of the most disturbing trends is the rise of what are called deepfakes.
Yeah, I've heard about those. Those are the videos and images that are manipulated using AI to make it look like someone is doing or saying something they never did right.
Exactly, and they're being used disproportionately to target women.
How so?
One of the most common ways deepfakes are being used is to create non-consensual pornography.
So they're taking images of women and using AI to create fake nude photos or videos. That's awful.
It is, and it's not just celebrities who are being targeted.
Right.
Every day, women are finding themselves victims of this type of abuse.
Right.
It's a complete violation of their privacy and consent, and it can have devastating consequences for the victims.
It can damage their reputations, their relationships, their mental health. I can't even imagine.
And the worst part is that it can be incredibly difficult to prove that a deepfake is fake.
Right.
So the victims are often left feeling powerless and disbelieved.
That's just horrifying. And it's not just deepfakes that are a concern, right?
Yeah.
There are other ways that AI is being used in this context.
Right. Think about AI-powered surveillance tools.
Okay.
They can be used to track people's movements, monitor their online activity, and even predict their behavior.
And in the wrong hands, those tools could easily be used to harass and intimidate women.
Absolutely. Imagine a stalker using AI to track their victim's every move, or an abuser using AI to monitor their partner's online activity and control their access to information.
This is all starting to feel a little dystopian, like we're sleepwalking into a future where AI is used to control and oppress women.
It's definitely a valid concern, and it underscores why we need to be having these conversations and demanding better from the people who are developing and deploying these technologies.
Okay, so it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how it's being used and the lack of safeguards in place. What can be done to address these really serious issues?
Well, one of the most important things is raising awareness.
Go.
If people aren't even aware of these risks, they can't protect themselves.
Right.
We need to educate women and girls about how to identify and avoid these types of abuse. And we need to educate everyone about the ethical implications of AI.
Right. We need to be talking about this stuff openly and honestly, and we need to be demanding better from our tech companies and our policymakers. What else can be done?
We need stronger laws and regulations to protect women from online and offline gender-based violence and harassment. Governments need to step up and take this seriously, and they need to work with tech companies to develop and implement safeguards.
Like what kind of safeguards? Give me some specifics.
Well, we need things like age verification for certain types of content, better content moderation policies, and tools for reporting and removing abusive content.
And what about the offline world? How is AI being used in ways that can contribute to gender-based violence and harassment there?
One area that's really concerning is the use of AI in law enforcement and the criminal justice system.
Give me an example. How is that playing out?
In some places, AI is being used to try to predict the likelihood that someone who has been convicted of a crime will reoffend.
Okay, so they're trying to use AI to assess risk and predict future behavior. What's the problem with that?
The problem is that these AI systems are often trained on data that reflects the existing biases in the criminal justice system.
So, for example, if women are more likely to be arrested for certain types of crimes, even if they're no more likely to actually commit those crimes, that bias will get built into the AI system.
Exactly, and that can lead to situations where women are unfairly penalized or judged more harshly because of their gender.
Wow, that's really disturbing. It's like these algorithms are just reinforcing the very inequalities we're trying to dismantle.
It's a big concern, and it highlights why it's so important to approach the development and deployment of AI with a human rights-based approach.
What does that mean exactly?
It means making sure that the design and implementation of AI systems are guided by principles of fairness, accountability, transparency, and non-discrimination.
So putting human rights at the center of AI development.
Exactly, and making sure that AI is used in ways that respect and protect the rights of everyone, especially those who are most vulnerable.
And that includes women and girls.
Absolutely. We also need to see greater diversity in the teams that are developing these AI systems.
You've touched on this before, but why is that so important?
Because if the people who are building these AI systems don't represent the diversity of the population, those systems are more likely to reflect the biases of the dominant group.
And that can have really harmful consequences for the people who aren't part of that group.
Exactly. We need to make sure that women and people from marginalized communities are involved in every stage of the AI life cycle, from design to development to deployment.
It's about creating a more inclusive and equitable AI ecosystem where everyone has a voice and everyone's rights are respected.
That's the ultimate goal.
So we've talked about the risks of AI-powered surveillance, deepfakes, and biased algorithms in law enforcement. What are some solutions that can be put in place to address these issues?
One solution is to ensure that data used to train AI systems is balanced and representative of the population as a whole. This is a crucial step in preventing bias from being built into the technology from the ground up.
That makes sense. If you're training an AI system on data that's already skewed, the output is going to be skewed as well.
Exactly. Another important solution is to build transparency into the AI development process. People need to be able to understand how these algorithms work and how decisions are being made.
So it's not just about having the right data. It's about being open and accountable about how that data is being used.
Right. And we need to be developing ethical guidelines and regulations for the use of AI, especially in sensitive areas like law enforcement and surveillance.
So we need clear rules of the road to make sure that AI is being used responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. And these rules need to be enforced, which means we need strong oversight and accountability mechanisms.
It sounds like a multifaceted approach is needed to really address these issues. It's not just a technological fix. It's about changing how we think about and approach AI development as a society.
I couldn't agree more.
This has been a sobering but also really empowering conversation. Well, we've confronted some pretty uncomfortable truths about the potential dangers of AI, but we've also talked about some concrete steps that can be taken to create a more just and equitable future.
I'm glad you're feeling empowered, because that's exactly what we're aiming for. Knowledge is power, and by understanding the potential risks, we can start to advocate for solutions.
That's a great point. So we need to be informed.
Yeah.
We need to be critical, and we need to be engaged. We can't just sit back and let technology shape our future without our input.
Absolutely. We have a responsibility to ensure that AI is used in a way that benefits all of humanity, not just a select few.
Well said. Okay, I think that's a great place to pause for now. When we come back, we're going to shift gears and talk about some of the specific initiatives and organizations that are leading the charge for a more equitable AI future. Stay with us. Welcome back. So far, we've explored the challenges and the potential risks of AI, especially when it comes to gender equality.
Right.
But now I'm excited to shift gears and talk about solutions.
Yeah.
There are so many incredible people and organizations out there who are working to make AI more equitable and inclusive. What are some of the bright spots that are giving you hope?
Well, it's inspiring to see how much energy and passion is being poured into this issue.
Yeah.
One of the most impressive efforts I've seen is the UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI. It's basically a blueprint for developing and using AI in a way that benefits everyone, not just a privileged few.
I remember you mentioned this earlier. Can you unpack it a bit more for our listener?
Yeah.
What makes this recommendation so important?
Well, it's really comprehensive. It lays out a whole set of values and principles that should guide everything from how AI systems are designed to how they're deployed in the real world. And one of the core principles is promoting gender equality.
So it's not just about avoiding harm. It's about actively promoting fairness and inclusion.
Exactly. The recommendation talks about the importance of having diverse teams working on AI projects, using fair and representative data, and taking steps to mitigate bias.
It sounds like they're really trying to change the whole culture of AI development.
That's exactly right. And UNESCO isn't just putting out a document and calling it a day. They're actually supporting the implementation of these recommendations through various initiatives, like the Women for Ethical AI platform.
Tell me more about that platform. What kind of work are they doing?
It's a global hub for experts, researchers, and advocates who are all working to advance gender equality in AI. They're doing things like developing guidelines for gender-responsive impact assessments, advocating for policies that promote inclusion, and creating resources to help organizations build more ethical AI systems.
That's fantastic. So you've got these global organizations like UNESCO setting the standards and pushing for change. What about at a more local level? Are there examples of grassroots initiative that are making a difference?
There are so many. One that I find particularly inspiring is the AIGN project, which is active in Argentina and Mexico.
What is AIGN all about? What are they doing?
They've developed open source software that helps criminal courts collect and analyze data on gender-based violence.
That's an interesting approach. How does it help address the issue?
Well, by having better data, courts can start to understand the scope and the patterns of gender-based violence, which can then inform policies and interventions aimed at prevention and support for survivors.
So it's about using AI to shed light on a problem that's often hidden or overlooked.
Exactly. And what makes AIGN even more powerful is that it's led and developed by women from the global South.
Oh, wow.
They're using their lived experiences and their technical expertise to create a tool that can make a real difference in their communities.
I love that it's not just about creating AI solutions for women. It's about empowering women to create those solutions themselves.
Right. It's about shifting the power dynamics in the tech world and making sure that women have a seat at the table.
These are the kinds of stories that give me so much hope.
Me too.
AIGN is a perfect example of how a feminist and gender-transformative approach to AI can lead to real, tangible change.
I agree. It's not just a theory or an abstract concept. It's happening right now all over the world, and it's making a difference.
This whole conversation has been such a journey. We've talked about some really tough issues, but I'm walking away feeling more informed. More engaged. And more optimistic about the future.
Yeah, me too.
What about you?
Definitely. It's easy to get discouraged when you look at the challenges. But there's so much incredible work being done. It's a reminder that change is possible and that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
So what's the key takeaway for our listener today? What do we want them to remember?
I'd say it's this. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay engaged. Keep learning about AI, keep asking questions, and keep pushing for a future where this powerful technology is used to create a more just and equitable world for everyone.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of women and AI.
It was my pleasure. Let's keep this conversation going.
Absolutely. And to our listener, thanks for being here with us today. We hope you've learned something new and that you'll join us again next time for another fascinating deep dive.